Nick, what do the markets look like out there?
Thanks, Leon. Thanks for joining me again this week. The markets are kind of boring for Bitcoin, pretty much ending the week flat, whereas ETH has ended the week considerably lower, about 5.5%, which appears to be maybe a sell the news event when we saw the ETH futures go live across the US in these ETFs. But subsequently, price has done what historically has been the case when these big announcements come, when the ETFs go live. That is when it's actually a bit of a sell the news event, and we see ETH start to sell off in that event. So we see maybe it priced in a lot, and the market has responded by quite a lot of sell-offs. Not too much else in the market as we stay around 1.1 trillion. So just a lot to look out for, and especially this trial coming up. I think we've got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, that's right. I think let's just get right into the trial because that has been the biggest news in crypto this week. And for those members out there, let's just get a brief update. I'll give you a small intro here. So SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, his trial has recently kicked off in the United States. And this is to do with FTX, which was one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world. They served trillions of dollars in customer funds. Now, Nick, let's talk about this. Let's hash it out. I know the trial started around about last week. The jury has been picked already. The first witnesses have been called in. What's the current deal? What's the sentiment like around this crypto trial?
Yeah, it's hit the news, from mainstream media. I know I flicked on the news channel, Channel 7, Channel 9 here in Australia. We saw Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX really get a lot of headlines. And I think that's only going to continue. And probably the biggest takeaway is that the mainstream reception to crypto and even, I guess, sentiment still remains pretty low. And we're only going to see, as the trial continues on, exactly who some of these major players could be that have been roped in. And, really seeing how, I guess, FTX goes. And it's a real big statement for the industry, that's for sure.
Yeah, Nick, I know this is it's getting on the news recently, and I think I saw it as well, but only in passing. So I'm really worried about the whole sentiment it's going to do to the blockchain space. People are just going to come in and see crypto was already kind of speculative and people were worried that it's whole a scam. I'm worried that people are going to see that the same way as well. They're going to see that SBF and the whole FTX exchange is pretty bad for the crypto space. Do you think that's justified at all? I'm a bit worried, mate.
I would be, but my counterpoint, and maybe what we'll get into, especially when we look at FTX and how the reception was very slow and a lot of low volumes, is that it's already reached what feels like considerably low sentiment and real look at the crypto space. It's from whatever you go to, we get associated with crypto being negative. We're seeing is this stuff used for anything at all? A lot of these similar questions. I know there was a good graph you can put up, maybe we'll put in the notes, that shows how many times Bitcoin has been labeled dead over the years. We saw earlier in the year that was really rising, and a lot of the public sentiment is already so low. So you've got to wonder, how low can we go? And the biggest thing I think FTX has gone for it is that it was actually more akin to perhaps old-fashioned fraud. When you come down to it, they use people's funds for illicit behavior. It wasn't actually like the DeFi platforms or any real use of a lot of these tools that were sort of the ones that were evil. It was more so these centralized actors who took on a lot of this trust and I guess did more old-fashioned fraud and using customer funds for illicit purposes. So kind of positive and negative, but maybe we can also discuss the wider impact that it may have on the market as well, because we have to think about who else is going to be roped into this. And I guess some of the ripple effects that may not have fully been resolved with a couple other key players such as Digital Currency Group or Gemini, who are still battling out for trying to return customer funds, which all came to a head because of this FTX collapse.
Yeah, that's right. There is other stakeholders in the whole game as we are discussing here. Like you did discuss Digital Currency Group, but what I'm also concerned about a little bit is some of the key ecosystem vulnerabilities that we may not know of yet. This guy is going to be under oath, and he's going to be able to say some stuff which may come across pretty stupid. Because remember, when he first was going through this whole trial, he was not listening to his lawyers. He was not complying pretty well. So I'm actually, a little bit concerned that he's going to come out and say, oh, this is pretty bad in this space. This guy is doing some really shady stuff over here. Or that's the sort of thing I'm thinking it might happen.
Yeah, I guess he's a bit of a wild card. Although I would be shocked to see him, especially anything that's unsubstantiated. And at the end of the day, he's got to be a smart guy to not look totally crazy in front of the jury.
Yeah, that's right. Now, Nick, did you have any other takes on this FBF trial? I mean, I'm just waiting for it to actually all unfold. It's only just starting now. It's going to be a prolonged journey. It's going to be on the news all the time. So we will probably continue to cover this over the next couple of weeks. But Nick, you got any more takeaways from this for us?
Just that the trial might last another 6+ weeks. A lot of people are expecting it to go much longer, considering the sheer magnitude of all the evidence that has to go through, and just the sheer totality of the case. It was $1 billion fraud, so it's going to go on a while longer. We'll continue to keep you updated, and just like you, I'm waiting for this to resolve. And maybe the one thing to leave it on a positive note on the impact on the market is that we're finally getting clarity on the biggest frauds that happened in 2022. We're even seeing, as we spoke in a pod last week, some of the Three Arrows Capital guys getting arrested. We saw Do Kwon.
Right.
He's at the moment sitting in a jail. We got the Celsius CEO. He's going to face he's going to face 20 years in prison. So perhaps the positive out of all this is that actually the fraudsters, the real rogue actors in the space, are perhaps being held to account. And this may make the path cleaner and clearer, especially when we get clear guidelines for more sophisticated actors to actually enter the space confidently.
Yeah, that's right. Well, all the alternate side, Nick, is that these other people get to see how not to behave in this space and how they can actually get away with what they need to do. So it's a good and a bad thing. I think some people may learn some really great positive lessons from this, but at the end of the day, it is still good for crypto because the people do come to justice, the ones that were malicious in the space anyway. So overall, it's still good, I think. Right on, Nick. So I think let's move on to our next news item today, which is about the Ethereum Futures. They're going live. I think it's a signal into the state of the market, really. So which Ethereum Futures are we specifically talking about? No, we covered it last week.
Yeah, so there was 9 futures ETFs. So as a reminder, futures doesn't mean that they get to buy the spot Ethereum, which is in the case of Bitcoin, that you're buying the actual Bitcoin to back that ETF. These are sort of cash-based, but these are just different products that allow institutional retail users of like brokerage accounts with like CMSC, which is some of the biggest brokerage ways to get exposure to the space. They went live. So I think there was a few that were VanEck, Bitwise, ProShares. These are a couple of the big names that got their applications approved and went live. But we really saw that the reception was not expecting it to be on par with Bitcoin, which had I think about $1 billion of first week volume onto their future ETFs products, but it was only about 2 million. So even though we weren't expecting it to match Bitcoin, it was still substantially below expectations, with 2 million on day one and then about 20 million of assets sort of being bought and sold on these futures in the first week.
Yeah, it's actually quite weird, isn't it? That everyone in the crypto space is waiting for the institutions to arrive. And then when they do get a futures fund, they only actually end up doing $2 million in volume in the first day of something launches. So that's actually quite, anticlimactic, I would say. But at the same time, I would say, this is just only the first day. There is still a prolonged period of time where crypto will come into the news again, and institutions see that they want to actually trade. It's going to be there. So it's still a step in the right direction, I would say. But I guess my main question is, what's the impact of this?
Yeah, I would think the biggest thing that we have to think about is what the sentiment, is showing at the moment. We're seeing such low volumes on these ETH futures, but if we look and take a step back and zoom out, we actually look at sort of daily exchange volume. That's hit October 2020 lows, so we're hitting 3-year lows for that. Even volume on DEXs, they're I think down 80% from their all-time highs. If we also even look back to crypto funding, for example, it came out this week that the total amount of funding being allocated from these big VC firms has hit I think 3-year lows. So across the board, we're seeing a lot of just crickets out there for everyone that's backing off from the crypto market, and that says a lot. That it's not just I think ETH futures that are being slow to adopt. That is a reflection on ETH, I think it's more a reflection on, the market out there at the moment, because from what metrics you look to, from developers to exchange volume, and to these ETH futures, they're all signaling the same thing, which is just that the market is very quiet right now.
Yeah, that's right. And on top of that, add regulations and the SEC going after people. Of course, it's going to be a little bit more quiet until something significant comes, some kind of clarity, which is going to bring a lot more people in. And and over at Collective Shifter has been a little bit quiet as well. We're not going to lie here, but that's fine. We will continue to be here covering the news for you every single day. Now, let's move on. Nick, so I've got some positive news for some people out there. This is for the people who are affected by the FTX bankruptcy itself, as well as the Celsius bankruptcy. I'm involved in both of them myself, which means I'm pretty unlucky in the space. Now, Celsius actually came out and released a restructuring plan. I believe you can already go and vote. I've already voted myself. I don't know if the voting period has ended, but the whole idea is to create a new entity with about $450 million in seed funding. And the main idea behind this new entity is to go ahead and mine some Bitcoin, because Celsius did have some Bitcoin miners. It had a Bitcoin subsidiary on the side. So it starts to do this, and then, of course, they're going to start distributing about $2 billion worth of Bitcoin and Ethereum all the way to the crypto creditors, and as well as myself, hopefully. Now, I do actually follow a really trusted source. His name is Simon Dixon. He's a popular crypto stakeholder. Now, he does have a small timeline that he did provide on his, because he's very involved in the whole restructuring process. And I'm just going to read out a few dates for people, just in case you might be interested. So the exit timeline, this is what the timeline currently looks like. Voting is September 22nd. We're actually past that at the moment. And then the first kind of crypto distribution we're really looking at is around the December mark. So people who are in Celsius, it is, a little bit likely you may be able to get a first crypto distribution. This is based on how you ended up voting, if you wanted more new company shares or you wanted more liquid cryptocurrencies, or if it might not even affect you because you've ended up selling your claim. Now, on top of that, the NASDAQ filing for the new company, for the mining company from Celsius, will be around December, January. And of course, the last share distribution for that company as well will be in March. Now, the whole thing behind this is that, it's a long, protracted kind of a journey. So you got to be patient when this thing comes, and also take in consideration your tax liabilities on top of this. I know we are doing our member Q&A, and we do have some tax questions on this, so we'll try and tackle it then. Now, secondly, on top of this, the FTX creditors also had reasons to celebrate this week. So FTX stake in an AI startup called Anthropic is actually doing really, really well. The positive signs is that Anthropic itself, which is an AI company, specializes in general intelligence as well as a language model, which is really similar to ChatGPT. It's actually going through a possible acquisition of $30 billion. Basically, what does that mean? It just means that the FTX stake, the seed rounding they were involved with in Anthropic, may actually end up covering the entirety of FTX deposits, all the way up to 100%, and maybe a little bit extra cash on top of that. It just basically means it's pretty good for FTX if this company does end up getting acquired. So it's enough to cover shortfalls, but it's not through and through yet. Let's not count our chickens before it actually hatches. So let's just wait a little bit more and see. Yes, hoping we can all be made whole here, because I desperately need it myself. Nick, let's go on to our next kind of item, my friend. I know the SEC had something to say again this week. They always have something to say.
Yeah, they always have something to say. I think we have to have a regular SEC segment on this show, and I can't wait into the days that perhaps we could talk about something other than the SEC. But a small one here was just they were failed in their bid to appeal the Ripple loss, which is a ruling that happened a couple of weeks ago. Essentially just said that the SEC has to wait until after the case finishes to appeal whether some of the key findings in the case are valid or not. So this isn't actually too much of a big story. Maybe it was blown a bit out of proportion. So it's just essentially set a new date to settle some of the other issues in the court case, and then just told the SEC that, hey, you can't get any special treatment to appeal anything right now. You just basically just have to wait later. So more waiting, and we're going to see, I think, an April 2024 date for some of the other more contentious issues that weren't decided yet.
Right on, Nick. I know we cover SEC, like we said, every bloody week. Maybe we should have a small segment for them just on the Collective Shift podcast. Now, let's move on. I got our biggest section of the video this week. We're going to be talking about, last week, we actually talked about a few tokens. This week, we're going to talk about a few more tokens. So let's stay tuned. Let's see what we're going to say. Nick, why don't you set the scene for us? What are we going to do?
Yeah, thanks. So if you listened to the podcast last week, we sort of had a reflection on kind of what are the core fundamental principles I think is important to think about, which is looking past market cycles and looking at just how much the top 20, top 10, even top 100 changes from cycle to cycle, which you could do via the coin market cap, historical charts. So, we went over the first top 20 or top 10 last week. And I think now we're going to jump into looking at that top 25 and perhaps go through it and just see which maybe mainstays here will be able to keep their spot in the top 25, possibly even challenge the top 10, or which coins in that top 25 are going to be the ones that slowly bleed out or slowly just lose market share in the top market capitalization to other incumbents or newer cryptocurrencies. So I'm not sure which one you want to start off with there, Leon, but I know MATIC is probably one of mine that I would find it really difficult to see MATIC sort of lose market share, skip out of that top 15, top 25 market cap, and if anything, maybe likely to stay in that top 10 and finally break through. Yeah, this is mainly just because they're finally launching a lot of their different networks that they're trying to create, and they're trying to become more backed by Ethereum. So at the moment, they remain kind of on their own island with their proof of stake network, and they're not actually really inheriting anything from ETH apart from some of its compatibility. And we're going to finally start to see Polygon sort of pursue what they're called Polygon 2.0 and start to back Polygon by Ethereum and really realign themselves back to Ethereum ecosystem. So I think this is going to be a very positive catalyst for them if they can pull it off, as well as MATIC would be changing their tokenomics to a new token which would be called POL. So essentially that's just going to mean that the new MATIC token will have a lot more utility. You'll be able to use it to do a lot of different roles in the Polygon ecosystem, which I think is a big benefit, especially when you compare some other cryptocurrencies that may not have that much utility or actual productive power in that ecosystem. So I think these are all really good positives for Polygon, and really keen to see if they can successfully deliver, because that's going to be the big question. It's such a mammoth task.
Yeah, that's nothing like a good rebranding and some great rehaul of tokenomics for a token to keep staying and be relevant in the top 10. I think MATIC is a good choice, my friend. I myself, I'm going to go on a small side note. You discussed a bit of tokenomics. I've got one that I think should not definitely be in the top 25, and we'll go back and forth between all of them. So far, I have Shiba Inu. I actually think should not be in the top 25. First off, it's a meme token, right? It's not worth the time to discuss it. I just want to remind everyone, it is supposed to be a joke. It's an eclectic community of memers rather than a serious, financial markets changing protocol similar to MATIC that Nick was talking about. But let's look at a flagship project, which is Shibarium. It's layer 2. It's TVL, which sure isn't the best way to measure success. It peaked at 1.5 million at the start of September. It sits around 570K. Let's compare that to the rest of the crypto market. That sits at 72nd of the whole crypto market just based off TVL. They have a coin burning mechanism implemented, which to me, as Nick was saying, is the utility of the token. If you have coin burning, right? To me, that just says you don't have an actual proper use case utility for your token. You're just trying to burn some of it and reduce some of it from your supply. And speaking of supply, 600 trillion tokens. So how much burning do you think you have to do to actually catch up to 600 trillion tokens? So for me, Shibarium definitely should not be in the top 10. Terrible tokenomics. There's no reason, there's no competitive edge. I see all the reason to avoid it and no reason to hold it. So I'm going to leave it there. That's one thing. Shiba token, Shiba Inu shouldn't be in the top 10. Just to add on
something there as well. My view on meme coins here is that they can actually act as a de facto gauge on speculation in the space. Their primary use case is quote unquote fun and speculation. That I actually wouldn't be surprised to see it continue to stay there, but just for the fact that people will probably always try and get into these, fun speculative meme coins, which for me is definitely going to act as a real tail sign when we start to see meme coins potentially get interest again. They might accelerate a market cap. For me, that's something to watch. Not that it's going to have lasting value, but also just that you can really act and get a bit of a check on sentiment in the space when speculation into these coins starts to increase.
Oh yeah, that's right, Nick. I definitely think it has its use as like a way for people to have fun and come into the community and attract people. But that doesn't mean it should really stay in the top 25, I would say. Like, sure, it can go to 50, 100. It'll still be that fun thing, but it's not going to have staying power. That's what I think.
Good lesson as well when you look at something and it's got the trillions of, tokens out there.
Zeros at the end of it.
That's a very big alarm.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Nick, so you had MATIC, the first one. What's something else that you wanted to, something else you think should really stay in the top 10 or top 25?
Yeah, so Uniswap is one of the more contentious tokens out there because of, I think, the inability to actually have value flow back to the Uni token. Uniswap continues to dominate the DEX market share, continually holds 50 to 60% of the market. A lot of tokens are exchanged through Uniswap. Even if you're not using it explicitly, you might be using what's called an aggregator. So it just gets you the best price for your tokens. A lot of that will actually, route through Uniswap because they have some of the biggest liquidity, the deepest liquidity, and the most tokens that really are traded on its protocol. So this one I'm just continuing to be excited for because when I see it, sort of slip almost out of the top 25 now. So it's out there at about 24, which for the biggest DEX in the space with the biggest name brand reputation. Because I also think of these things like they're, like brands in any other space. People will probably stay using Uniswap because they like the Uniswap brand. They like maybe the wallet that they use that they just released. They know that they can trust Uniswap to give you the best price, and it's just a good experience. So I think the brand itself is staying power. And as we get possible clarity in the market, I really question whether that's going to be positive for Uniswap and whether they're going to be eventually start to get some of these fees going back to Uni holders, which then could get off a really good flywheel for Uni and then give it that reason to hold. So yeah, Uni 24 at the moment, that's one I'll be really shocked to see get out that top 25 and one that I wouldn't be shocked to see try and accelerate up the rankings.
Yeah, Nick, I think the Uni token itself is kind of like an underdog. It's so useful to the entire ecosystem. We don't value it as much as we do. It's got the highest liquidity, as you said. And on top of that, like the amount of protocols that need Uni to actually survive, DEX volume has been surpassing centralized exchange volumes. And it just seems to be going into that direction. And Uniswap is the leader in the market, as you were saying before. So yeah, I kind of think that's a good pick for the to stay in there, at least in the top 25. Hell, if it goes below that, I got to have a look at myself. And now I want to tag on to you there. I've got something that I think has some pretty good staying power. When we talk about utility and value in the ecosystem, I think that's Chainlink, Nick. I think Chainlink is so undervalued in the crypto ecosystem. The way I see it, they're a major player connecting the actual real world that we live in to the blockchain world, right? We need oracles. That's the main product that Chainlink actually does. What it does is it translates whatever we see in the real world into the crypto world so that we can have DeFi, right? I don't think Uniswap would be able to function much without some actual oracles behind it powering the entire system. The newest kind of protocol, which is really just bolstering the core product of a Chainlink, is called CCIP. Just going to keep it very simple. The whole idea is to improve the information flow from one place to another. It really improves demand on the token because there's a 10% kind of premium if you use any other token that gives it utility, and so you get really incentivized to use the Chainlink token. Now, these are not just once-off transactions where you just pay, another 10 cents on top of it. No, this is used by institutional-grade clients, people like Swift, who are trying to experiment with this new cryptocurrency and try and bring things onto the payments world, like the actual real world where we all live. So for me, Chainlink is one of those ones that I really think should be in the top 25. At least if it starts going down, it'll find itself back up there, Nick.
Yeah, Chainlink also, for those people in Australia, our Aussie listeners, they actually formed sort of a partnership with that Swift trial, to really test out Chainlink and how to possibly go about using some of this cryptocurrency technology and harnessing these public blockchains through Chainlink. and getting that as a good intermediate. I think that was on Ethereum testnet, and in a private sort of manner, as they really tried to limit their exposure to it and just try things out. But when you see Chainlink forming really good partnerships, that's a really good sign that these things, and something that has such a vital cog. I always think of Chainlink as the backbone of the crypto economy. It's really tough to live without it, and I just really hopefully we can see again tokenomics value start to flow into that Link token, which I know that they're really working on heavily, especially as some revenue then is received back in Link through more and more of these assets being facilitated and transferred. More value then can accumulate to Link.
Yeah, that's right, man. Well, Nick, I think you might have some more tokens that you like or don't like in the top 25. I've got one last one which shouldn't be there, but I want you to have a go.
Yeah, perhaps mine maybe is Dot. Dot is one that we have followed a bit in the last couple of years, and we're kind of disappointed with their parachain auctions, which was a mechanism to bring and sort of create your own application, backing, and in that Polkadot ecosystem, you actually had to pay quite a lot of money to basically get this slot to be able to use Polkadot and its ecosystem. So really struggling with Polkadot. They're coming out with Polkadot 2.0 possibly, but it just seems like maybe the sort of ship a sail, maybe they've missed the mark, maybe it's too late. So I'm really following maybe whether we'll see Atom, which is the native token for the Cosmos hub. And Cosmos is one of the biggest blockchain ecosystems there is. Atom acts as a sort of security provider for that ecosystem. I'm really questioning whether we're going to see something like Atom and its new tokenomics as well. We're seeing a lot of this tokenomics 2.0 stuff going around. That's probably close to passing maybe at the start of 2024. So I'm really wanting to see whether we'll see Atom potentially flip and we'll see Dot continue to slide down the rankings.
Yeah, and look, I do agree with the Dot myself because I did used to use the Dot ecosystem, the Polkadot ecosystem, and I was part of some parachain auctions as well. But the chain is a bit slow for me, as well as it's actually a bit costly to use. So I kind of feel like, oh no, well, why do I need to transact on Polkadot? I can just go and use any Ethereum layer 2 or alt layer 1s. So for me, Dot has missed the mark, I would say. They are big on decentralization, but at the end of the day, that's not what I want right now. I need to pay someone right now, and it needs to be very quick. So yeah, I think Dot is one of those ones that will continue to struggle and move down the list. If it replaced by ADA or Cosmos, possible. Yeah, we'll have to see.
I'd love to hear what's on your no-go list, because I feel like it's probably something that was on my list as well.
Yeah, that's right. I think one of them that we may have in common, Nick, is Bitcoin Cash. Now, I know everyone is probably familiar with Bitcoin Cash. It's the little brother of Bitcoin from the Bitcoin block wars that happened a couple of years ago. Basically, the whole idea of Bitcoin Cash was that, hey, we need to fit more transactions into Bitcoin. How are we going to do that? To double the size of the block so that it can take more transactions. And the Bitcoin core community was like, no, then you're changing Bitcoin. That's not actually Bitcoin. And so all of a sudden, Bitcoin Cash comes around. Now, I myself don't quite agree with the whole idea of Bitcoin Cash. It's supposed to be the payments blockchain, but really it still is quite expensive to transact on there as compared to any layer 2, right, or layer 1s. On top of that, the security isn't there as well. For a payments blockchain, you need something that can actually secure the base layer of what you're actually using. The security is not as strong as Bitcoin, so why take the second best when you can actually just take Bitcoin itself? You can use any other like payments blockchains like Solana or Layer 2 or XRP. I don't see a giant market edge for Bitcoin Cash. On top of that, like the TPS is 100, Nick. 100 TPS. That's not enough for payments. I think the space has moved on past the TPS thing.
Yeah, I think it's just an old remnant of people that have lost their Bitcoin Cash or out there floating. That's probably the reason why the market cap still remains so high. And people may look at that are perhaps not as savvy, especially if you're a newcomer to the space and you see something that's like Bitcoin. Maybe you get sucked into the unit coin bias, whatever that may be. So, I really can't wait to the day that we finally see some of these older 2017 chains start to be eclipsed and slowly bleed out and finally exit that top 50, top 100.
Now, Nick, I've got one more, which I think does have staying power. Now, I've used the network myself. It's Litecoin. I don't know if anyone remembers it. I had a look at the snapshot from CoinMarketCap, and it was still around in the top 10, even top 5, all the way from 2013. Now, it does have staying power, and my reason for this is that there's still a lot of technical kind of development happening on Litecoin. Now, Mimblewimble comes to mind, which is a new privacy kind of layer they're adding on top of it. They have stealth addresses, which means that you'll be able to actually create a new wallet address for every new single transaction, kind of obscuring yourself away from it, and you only get to see that new transaction. As well as coin join, which means you can send your transaction with someone to another address, and then you split it up somehow. It's all very technical, and this is way above my pay grade, above my head. But I do see the technicals kind of working on Litecoin, and I see it as a test net for Bitcoin, and it's had staying power since 2013. I don't think it's got anywhere to go. People like to use it when Bitcoin gets too expensive, and it is pretty friendly with the Bitcoin crowd. So I think it's going to stay around, Nick, especially for Litecoin.
Interesting one. This is probably the one that I probably disagree with you on. Litecoin, yeah. Especially as I guess we see more layer 1 blockchains. I know maybe it's got similarities to Bitcoin. I just continue to see is who is really using it in a sustained manner, and perhaps I probably don't see as it used to be called the silver to Bitcoin.
The silver to Bitcoin's gold, yeah.
Which to me is kind of a forced narrative in a way. But I would love to be proven wrong, especially as the Litecoin halving thing just happens.
That's right.
We'll see what happens, and maybe we can get this one up in a couple of years. We'll see how Litecoin fared.
That's right. Yeah, we'll have to keep it up because I see it from 2013 and still be there till 2022. That's 10 years, a decade it's been on there. That's pretty impressive. Not many coins can stay in the top 25 for an entire decade. That's worth something, I would say.
My final ones that I potentially we'll see get out of that top 10 is maybe Cardano. Maybe we can link to past write-ups for Cardano. I don't want to go into too much depth, but essentially I just don't see the amount of stablecoins activity on there. I don't see the dApps being deployed, people creating applications on it, and even just usage of the chain overall. So ADA, one that I potentially will think is a very healthy thing if it finally exits the top 10. Because it could signal real growth in the space. And I'll just be continued to see whether we see more Ethereum L2s, these networks designed to scale Ethereum, start to enter the top 25 by the end of the next cycle. At the moment, we only have one, which is Polygon, and that's still not considered an Ethereum L2 yet because it's not really tied to Ethereum in a substantial way. A lot of its activity is on its not-Ethereum chain. So really excited to see whether we see the top 25 populated by a couple Ethereum L2s out there, whether it's Optimism or it's Arbitrum, whether it's a couple of these other smaller ones that haven't really launched as quickly.
I see that as actually a quite possibility because some of these layer 2s are garnering their own entire ecosystem. So I don't doubt they could make it in the top 25, especially when you look at the top 25 and you see Shiba Inu is still in there. Dear God, we need to have some better serious players in here. Now, Nick, thanks very much for sharing that. We did do a little bit of research before that, but maybe next week as well, we should, what do you think? Should we look at other tokens we think may end up coming into the top 50 from all over crypto? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, I think it's a good place to finish, especially looking maybe even outside the top 100. There's always going to be those new tokens that even haven't been released yet that potentially could challenge and disrupt the current top 25.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's a good plan. Let's look at it for next week. Look forward to it, my friend. And lastly, before we finish, let's look at something that we appreciated or underappreciated in the entire crypto space. Nick, let me know what you underappreciated this week.
Yeah, I really appreciated Jack Dorsey, his work that he's been doing for his Bitcoin-focused company, Spiral, and creating a new Bitcoin hardware wallet. So I was reading some interesting developments that they're finally starting to get the production started of these hardware wallets, and we're finally going to see them hit, I think, stores early 2024. So a lot to look forward to, and I'm really excited to hear what else is going to come out from Spiral and Jack Dorsey's Bitcoin companies, because I'm seeing a lot of potential new products, especially in the mining space. A new miner could be coming out, which I think could really change the game on how small it could be and the power it could do to potentially right the wrongs of some of the common Bitcoin criticisms, such as how costly it is to run a miner. So a lot to look out for, Bitcoin and especially Dorsey. I'm really actually going to get my hands on this Bitcoin wallet. So love to, maybe when I get it, I can show it off on the pod.
Yeah, let's definitely do a small section on the wallet if you end up getting it. That'd be pretty awesome. I know I'm interested in Bitcoin wallets as well, so I got to really get on top of it. But Nick, this is actually a little bit different from me. You like to keep your ear to the ground. I like to lay on the ground. I like to lay on the grass myself. So for me, I have actually just appreciated just, taking a little break from crypto and just lying down on the grass, as they say, touch the grass, appreciate it. It's been a pretty boring week for myself, apart from the FTX news, that's been all going crazy and wild. And then you just realize sometimes you just need to leave the room, go out for a walk and just relax and listen to something nice on your earphones. So yeah, for me, I've appreciated just taking a little break. And sometimes you guys need to take a little break as well. So I think on that note, we'll end it, Nick. Let's wrap it up there. If you're looking for more insights, make sure you actually do check out the weekly revamped Collective Shift newsletter. It provides free market insights every Friday. Make sure you subscribe at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter. We will see you next week.